You are watching the Nerds with Attitudes YouTube channel.
Hi, and welcome back to the Retro Show here on the Nerds with Attitudes YouTube channel. And today we will talk about the Retro Freak system.
Right here. Beautiful little thing here. Barely weighs 2 pounds.
And what
Really
this
nice.
thing does is play retro games, which includes Nintendo, Famicom, Super Famicom, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, the Mega Drive.
Yep.
What else?
Game Boy Advance, Game Boy Color, I believe. Whole bunch. Genesis. Did we get Genesis?
Genesis and
on
Mega
there,
Drive.
too. Yeah.
So, Jimmy, where'd you find this thing at?
Well, I was trying to figure out a way where we could record easier, and I just said, screw it. I put in onto Google HDMI capable retro system that can play old school video games, and bam, I got two things. I got the Retron 5 and the Retro Freak that we got right here. I think this was the freaking better thing for what I personally needed. Far more so than the Retron 5.
That's correct. This thing plays all your retro games on HD. So if you have an HDMI cable, plug it into this thing and it plays all your Nintendos, Super Nintendos. That's right. It plays all the imported games. So if you had a problem before trying to play your games, like you went to trade shows and whatnot and you saw these games.
It's having a lot of issues like that. And here's the thing that I personally like is the fact that you can put all your ROMs all in this tiny little card in the back of the system. And I've already got 1,500 ROMs on this thing, and it's freaking beautiful. I've got my entire game collection backed up on this thing because of this system.
Okay, so what it does is it takes your game and then it transports it onto that SD card, makes it into a ROM. So the Japanese made this game for us lazy Americans who don't want to get up and change games after you're done with one, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So you're playing with a game, just hit the home button on the controller. This is the controller. You hit the home button and it takes you to the menu, and then you can go to another system and they'll have the list of ROMs there, and then you can play those.
And this is actually a half-decent controller right here. Model on the Super Nintendo. It's really not too bad. Like, honestly, I still prefer a Super Nintendo controller, and that's what I utilize generally. But this is a not bad controller. I've had a retro bit before, and that thing had a god-awful controller. It was terrible. Thankfully, I could use my old controllers on the retro bit, but this thing actually stands alone as its own as a controller. It's not bad at all.
Okay, so this thing, did you buy it separately or did it come with a system?
I believe the way it was set up when they sell it is you have the standalone system that just comes with this thing right here, the main master system. This thing is a separate, it was like a controller adapter set. This thing can play, I think it's like, okay, got NES right here, Genesis, I think that's TurboGrafx, I'm not sure. Got Super Nintendo right here. And you can have all the controllers set up. For example, I put in Secret of Mana, and I actually was able to have 3 controllers working. A Genesis, a Super Nintendo, and the Retro Free controller, all 3 for 3-player on Secret of Mana. So it pretty much works as a multi-tap too, potentially. So that's another thing that's really, really nice.
Yes, that's right. Especially, see, if you have Sega Genesis games that require that 6-button controller, you can use a Super Nintendo controller for that. So that works out pretty good. Yeah, it's like a multi-tap. You can play all of your 4-player, 3-player games. Like you said, Secret of Mana.
Everything I had messed with, it worked perfectly. It doesn't really... Because basically you're allowed to button and controller map whatever you want to set it up for. So basically, even if it's an NES game, you can set a Super Nintendo controller on it, a Genesis controller, whatever you're comfortable with. That's the thing that's really wonderful about the adapter, is the fact that you can pretty much, whatever those controller ports you can utilize, you can play whatever game you want for it. That's a very nice little feature option, because I pretty much just use my Super Nintendo controller for almost everything.
The best controller ever made. And this thing is... They designed it just like the Super Nintendo controller. This thing, it has the 2 shoulder buttons. They even mapped out the buttons just like the Super Nintendo, X, Y, B, A. So, yeah, it's a good system. One thing, though...
Goes far, too. The fact, this thing is effortlessly light. It's not going to be a burdensome to take this thing to wherever you need to go. That's something I personally appreciate. Like, you can stuff it in a grocery bag and you're good to go.
One thing though is you need this thing to play your NES games.
You need a pin converter, and
right, because it won't fit into the Famicom slot. So did you have to buy this too?
Yeah. Basically, when I bought the system I believe that the system comes with a very small amount of internal hard drive space. I believe it's only 2 or 3 gigs. I bought a Samsung 32 one that 32 gigabyte card that went with it. Slots right in. When I bought this off of Amazon, it had items bundled that said people who bought this recommend this. That's where I had the freaking converter right here. And then I bought the card just so I had all the space in the world to put whatever the hell I wanted on there. But if you want to play your NES carts, you will need this converter because this is basically designed for Asia. It wasn't like it hasn't even been released out here in the States technically. So basically, it's designed for Famicom in this slot right here. So you need the converter to play your NES carts, but just about all the others, Genesis, Super Nintendo in particular, works with no problem. The slot works just fine.
And it plays the TurboGrafx 16 cards. When was the last time you saw a TurboGrafx 16 system?
Probably not since they were in the department stores, most likely. Right. However many years ago that was.
Yeah, so they're hard to find. This thing will play it, which is also the PC Engine. It's gonna play your handhelds, your Game Boys, your Game Boy Advance, your Game Boy Colors, and Game Gear as well, I believe.
I believe it does play Game Gear as well. And I was playing Final Fantasy Legend on it like just a couple of nights ago. Worked perfectly, all blown up really nice. Like, it doesn't take up the whole screen, but it crops it off in just a way where it sounds. The resolution conversion is very, very nice on the system. It takes a lot of the crappiness about how, like, to frame it right, put it in right. It even has game filters where it'll freaking clean it up just a little bit, smooth it out, or heck, you can add some of the freaking old lines back in if you really want to. There's a whole bunch of options. Lines. Yeah, I barely even touched all the options on this thing.
Yeah, so this thing. You can get online about, what was the price?
I believe with the set that I acquired, I believe it was $220 and some change. I bought the converter and the card. I think total price tag was just a hair under $250, I believe it was.
So they haven't made it to U.S. retailers yet. I mean, you could probably find them at trade shows, but you're going to most likely have to
They'll probably be marked up.
And they'll probably mark it up, yes. Get the system if you're into retro games. You've had a retro system before. It was the retro.
I had a retro bit.
How does that compare to this one?
I think it's garbage, frankly. The controller was shit. I wasn't impressed by that controller at all in the retro bit. And for what I had, I basically had an NES Super Nintendo slot. Sure, it worked, but frankly, like, it had a ridiculous death grip on it, which I didn't appreciate. So whenever you put the carts in, like, I was having a hard time for them to come out. I don't know. I didn't really care too much for the thing personally. And what really irritated me was I bought a system that was supposed to be able to play my old Super Nintendo controllers on it, and it didn't work. I had to get stuck with the crappy Retrobit controller. That pissed me off a lot.
So what we're gonna do? We're gonna go and we're gonna show you some of the settings and some of the features that this thing has. Like you said, there's filters on it, so you can make the game look even better than it is right now, or you can keep it retro. It gives you that option, but we'll go over that. But yeah.
Also has save loads. You have 9 files where you can save and load your games however you want. So you can snapshot your games, and bam, you can load it up back whenever you want. So if you're really going through the really shitty games, you can at least save load while you're through it, so the hair-tearing difficulty isn't as severe.
Yeah, that one jump in Ninja Gaiden 3, you could save slot right there and just keep going back to it. Or, like Mega Man, where you have to need a password.
Or every Castlevania in the NES library. Not Simon's Quest, but...
You're going to be using it a lot.
Hello, and here with the Retro Freak, we're at the main menu, and we're going to show you some of the settings and some of the features for the Game Freak. Right now, Jimmy, you're playing Operation C. So go ahead and show them how to work the controller setup.
Well, like right here, you go under controllers, and you got the controller player mapping. So basically, like, you switch around for whatever system you're playing on. You can basically see it says any controller. that's where you can, like, say for example, I hit the button, boom, my Super Nintendo controller is automatically linked up to whatever you got it set up for. So, like, for example, like with the Game Boy right here, I got my Super Nintendo controller to play Operation Contra here if I want to. Also, it's got turbo fire ratings. You can go to the button mapping right here, so you can map the buttons in the games however you want to set it up. It's pretty ingenious in that respect. One thing that you can do also is the AV settings. I don't know if it'll work with the Game Boy here, but you can actually change it where there's slight change coloration, so it'll filter it a little bit differently, or you can have it on none, which is basically the exact original format. So
Go ahead and play with the original, with no filters on. See what it looks like.
let's see if it'll make a difference here.
So this is what it would look like
Wow, actually,
on.
yeah, it looks pretty. This is Game Boy.
Yeah, that's the Game Boy with no filters. And now check out some of the filters.
Yeah, it already looks a lot smoother.
So yeah, it does look a lot smoother. Why don't you go ahead and play a Super Nintendo game? You're really gonna notice how good it looks with the filters on there.
One thing that's really convenient is the fact that I'm going from Operation Contra, and now I can go to Mario World. Bam! The thing that's neat too is the fact that this is from the last time I played Mario World, so I was barely messing around with it, but it even saves your spot.
So what Jimmy did is he put in his cartridge, his Super Nintendo cartridge he had since he was a kid. He put it on this Game Freak. It not only downloaded the ROM, it also downloaded his saved data. So he picked up where he left off last time.
I'm actually using the save data that I freaking did when I was a freaking young teenager. That's how freaking far back this data goes. So even if you have like the old games and your old save data on there, it'll extract it all and bring it right on there as if you never left.
Right now, Jimmy, go ahead and take off the filters, see what it looks like without the filters for this thing. So you can tell, you can see this pixelation now. So what the filter does, it smooths out the image. You can even add scan lines though if you want to even a more retro look.
See, already that looks so much more smoothed out, like such a huge difference. You go back, get all that original pixelation, so eye of the beholder, but personally I like it looking smoothed out. It looks a lot cleaner to me.
Of course. And one thing that you do need to do is you have to download the newest update for this Retro Freak. So pretty much the firmware. The website is in Japanese, but in English letters it says update on it, so it's easy for you to download the update. Oh, even though it took me like a couple of tries to do it, but I was able to do it. And you do need the SD card, because you do need to download all your ROMs to the SD card, and you do need to download the newest firmware on it. So yeah, that was it. Anything else you want to add, Jimmy?
I don't know. I'm still blown away at what this thing can do. Like, I don't know if you can see it in the corner of the video there where it says games, 1,560 games. I'm going through this right now. I have pretty much every bloody ROM on the Nintendo library right here. Like, just the fact that I have a system now where I can play pretty much everything I want to play. Like, to me, that's amazing. That's something that, my childhood self would freaking just go batshit over. Like, I never would have thought I'd have a piece of technology like this, honestly. Like, there's so many games on here. Look at this. I'm just going through alphabetically and it's still taking forever.
So yeah, this system does not come with any games. You're gonna need to acquire the ROMs. Either get your games and upload the game as a ROM, or you can get your ROMs elsewhere. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And yeah, these games look pretty good on this thing with the filters, and with it being HD, they look pretty damn good.
Again, I'm sort of almost testing it right now. I haven't played Mega Man in a couple of days, and it left off in the exact spot I was at in Airman stage. That there was no freaking difference at all. Put some freaking leaves in your fan, bitch. Easy peasy. But yeah, I mean, already switched off through a whole bunch of different games.
Yeah, so that was it for a review on the Retro Freak. On the Back to the Retro show on the Nerds with Attitudes YouTube channel. So that's it from us. So Jimmy, say goodbye.
This is Jimmy. Check you later.
This is Bets. Thanks for watching. Oh, and do subscribe to our channel, please.